and Anne. Is that it?
Yeah.
Georgina? Welcome everyone. I'll open the meeting. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he teo hi huka hi ho hu, ti hei Māori ora. Welcome everyone to the Three Waters Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting. I've got apologies for lateness from Sam McDonald, possibly Sarah. I think she's not here yet, so she'll be an apology, and Anne for lateness. Are there any other apologies? So I'll move those. Do I have a seconder? That's Jimmy. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Or wave. Against. That's carried. Thank you. Just be vigilant to declare any interest that you may have in any of these items. I have no declarations of interest at the moment, so please don't hesitate to declare if you have one. Confirmations of previous minutes. Do I have a mover? That's Phil, and a seconded Mike. I've just got a note for staff there on item 8 there. There were 2 requests from the committee. One's to provide an update on utilisation of landfill gas by council users, and the second was to request that staff provide an update on the achievements of handheld battery recycling program and look for possible options or ways to expand the program throughout the city. So can we please make a note of that and make sure that that work is in train? So on that note, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Wave. Opposed? That is carried. So we have item 4, no public forum today, no deputations, and there are no petitions. So that takes us nicely into item 7, which is the Three Waters bi-monthly report. So we've got a myriad of presenters today. We've got, because Helen is not with us today, we've got Tim Drennan, we've got Adam Twose, and we've got Teresa Wooding. So I'd like to welcome you guys on to open up your presentation. Thank you.
Hi, it's Adam Twose. For the presentation, I was just going to run through the main key points of the introduction at the start.
Great, thank you. That'll be good.
So I believe that's down on page 11, is it?
I think so.
Sorry, is it possible to bring that up on the screen, or do I need to try and bring that up on my screen? Brilliant. If we could go down to page 11, please.
Someone who's got a microphone on that possibly shouldn't be on. That's better.
So the summary for the report is obviously just to present the report. The key points that have been highlighted for the months of December and January is the Three Waters reform is proceeding with an ambitious timeline and new requests for information from the councils. The Three Waters bylaws are out for public consultation with hearings planned for March 2022. The stormwater management plan for the Inuatu estuary and coastal catchment will go out for consultation at the end of February 22 and must be lodged with Environmental Canterbury by the end of June 22. Water safety plans are actively being revised to meet the requirements set out by Te Matarawai, with draft standards and rules released in December 22. Work is underway to estimate the cost of fluoridating the city's drinking water supplies, with estimates and timeframes to be provided to the Ministry of Health by the 11th of March, and there's more details of that in the report. The capital delivery proceeds under the red light of the COVID framework with some supply delays. However, despite this, excellent progress is continuing to be made on the Littleton Harbour wastewater, water and wastewater renewals across the city, and the smart water pilot in the Rafiti zone. So can we just scroll down a little bit, please? And the Upper Heathcote stormwater basins and wetlands. Work is also continuing to optimise the operation of the Christchurch wastewater treatment plant following the fire in November 21 and reduce the odours affecting the adjacent neighbourhoods. And the planning teams are busy with the high volumes of consents for subdivisions and new builds that are continuing to come in.
Great. So is that it for you? or did you want to speak to something else in the report, more in detail, or you just giving us the summary and then
I was happy to give the summary. Obviously,
okay,
the full report is there, but obviously myself, Teresa, and Tim are available should any questions be on any more details.
That's fantastic. That's very succinct. So what I'm going to do now is, as part of the Three Waters reform section, I'm going to invite the Mayor, Leanne, to speak to us on the outcome of the working party or the working group findings. She'll speak to that, and then we'll open it up for questions for the entire report plus her comments. So Leanne, are you happy to do that now?
Yep.
Thank you.
Hopefully you can hear me all right.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sometimes it can be a bit unstable, so I will speak as quickly as I can. Just to run through, I just want to talk to process to start with. So the government established the terms of reference for this working group relatively late in the piece. So I think that the working group was established at the end of November, which essentially gave us an 8-week process time frame to work on recommendations in the area of, well, relatively limited areas in terms of the terms of reference over an 8-week process that included Christmas. So it was an incredibly challenging and intense process. And I'm just going to say that even though that it was really intense, and I'm going to comment about when it should have happened, that I have not regretted being a part of the process, and it has been incredibly valuable to be able to listen to iwi and also councils from around the country in terms of lived experience of Three Waters activities, and to look at some of the models that have been proposed. So we looked at I think 4 different models as part of this process as well. But as I say, it was a very, very much a pressure cooker environment. And I'm also very aware that Phil Goff wrote a minority report, and I'm sure some of you will want to know why I didn't. But I just want to say that I've come to understand far better than I did at the beginning of this process, or this part of the process, the question of scale. And Auckland already has water care established, where they've set up a council-controlled organisation across what were, I think, 7 councils. So they have significance of scale already, and I think the Minister commented on that in one of the Cabinet papers, you know, that you could say that Auckland already was a model of what they were trying to achieve. So that was one reason. And the second reason was that the real focus on stormwater, which has been a significant issue for our council, we're not the same as other councils in terms of land drainage and flood management and our responsibility for significant rivers like Otakaro and Ohopo. So, you know, we do have major issues within the city. As you'll see, though, that there is some commentary around the inclusion of stormwater that I've managed to have included in the report. And we're asking central government to look at some very significant issues in relation to some of the red flags that have been adopted. So in terms of the issues that the report has covered, I think when we listen to our own communities, we're hearing about the importance of ownership of the assets. You know, people have been concerned that assets are being taken from them. Establishing a shareholder model has been a significant way forward. And I hope that the government does adopt it, because I think it just clarifies it. It's a traditional mechanism for recognising ownership. It's how we own things within our own companies. We separate the governance structure from the council, but you know, take the power company, for example, Orion. It's our holdings company that owns the shares in the company, but we own 100% of the shares in CCHL. So So shareholding is a model that people understand. So I think that's been a significant advance, and I really do hope the government accept that as a recommendation. We have separated ownership from governance, which enables us to embrace co-governance, which is a good thing. And we just need to look at some of the co-governance models that we have in place. And I've been using the example of Te Waihora, the Lake Ellesmere, as some people know it, and the significance of the partnership that has been arranged in a co-governance model there, and the significance of the advances that can be made to one of the most polluted yet important water bodies in our entire country. So, and that's another thing that I've really got to understand very well, and that's the significance of Te Mana o Te Wai. I really haven't had a good understanding of that, and one of the members of the committee made it, or the working group, really nailed it for me when she said, I'm the mayor of a unitary authority. And if you're the mayor of a unitary authority, then you understand the significance of the MPS freshwater, which is where Te Mana o Te Wai was first introduced back in 2014, I think it was, and has been updated to identify the significance of addressing all of our freshwater around the country. When we're thinking about three waters, I couldn't quite get my head around how Te Mana o Te Wai integrates in terms of the infrastructure. But actually, when we focus on the importance of the water that we take water from, drinking water from, and we look at the places where we discharge wastewater, treated wastewater, and stormwater too, then the significance of Te Mana o Te Wai we're able to embed into this process. And so I've built some understanding in that regard. People were worried about privatisation. We've recommended to the government that that 100% shareholder agreement is required. So that gives little councils, big councils, equal say, and it prevents privatisation from actually ever occurring. And I know that all of us felt that that was a significant risk of the change. It would be just ripe for privatisation. We've seen it in the past with the SOEs that were always designed for privatisation agendas. This would offer a protection, and we are actually asking Parliament to step up there and say, regardless of what you think about the Three Waters reforms, can you please embed that 100% shareholder position, actually entrench it in legislation so that a 75% majority of Parliament is required to take it out, and that protects against future issues. We've added in a real say for communities, and as I say, focusing on the water bodies themselves. One thing that really worried me personally, but I know others as well, was who was going to set the priorities? How were they going to be determined? And so the recommendation is around subgroups, and in a way, just the report highlighting the one that we've just had, that the Ihutai Estuary and Coastal Stormwater Management Plan will be out for consultation. That identifies the significance of local priority setting in terms of meeting obligations to the water itself, and all of our stormwater management plans, which are part of our consent process with Environment Canterbury, they're an integral part of how you set priorities. And that means that, are we going to move to a sort of sub-regional recommendatory process, or do we have a catchment-based process? And basically the working group said it's really up to the region itself or the regional representative group, as it builds the constitutional arrangements around this. This is something that we work through with local communities so that the outcome is the best outcome that we can achieve, and that the work that needs to be done gets done, and that priorities are set by the communities themselves, rather than an entity which is very much focused on the delivery side of things. So I'm just going to end by saying that this model of engagement, including iwi and community leaders from around the country, council, mayors and chairs, that should have happened at the point that that we signed the MOU. So we signed an MOU to get access to what was regarded as tranche 1 money back in 2020. What should have happened is that this should have been set up then. And I think that if it had been set up then, right from the get-go, then I think that we would have been in a position to advise on an information strategy, communication strategy, that would have enabled people to actually work through the scale of the issues that we're addressing without the insulting advertising campaign that we were subject to. Because what that did was that it disrespected the incredible stewardship that councils over generations have offered to our Three Waters infrastructure. So I think that would have come through at the same time as acknowledging the scale of meeting the new standards, what that actually means, but more importantly, understanding that narrative that sits in behind Te Mana o Te Wai and what we need to do as a nation to clean up the water bodies. And when I'm saying water bodies, when you're talking about Three Waters, it's essentially where we take water from and where we discharge wastewater and stormwater to. And we know that ourselves, that if we hadn't had the scale of Christchurch, then Banks Peninsula would still be struggling with the Littleton wastewater arrangements, and would be nowhere near as advanced as we are towards resolving the Akaroa wastewater one. So that's why scale matters. But that's just in summary where we're up to. Hopefully I haven't turned into a Dalek along the way. As I say, it's a set of recommendations. There's a lot more to it that sits in behind it, but I've just picked up the headline issues and commented on those. Thanks, Pauline.
Well, thanks, Leanne. That was a really succinct and eloquent summary, and it's really good to have had you on there and to be able to give us a first-hand report. Can I just quickly ask a question, and then I'll throw it open to the committee on this one? That do you think, has the working group kind of recommended that a one-size-fits-all may not work across the board? I mean, we talked about the CCO model in Auckland working quite well, and also that Christchurch has got a very different situation with our stormwater. Do you think that, is that part of your recommendation?
Well, the fact that it's not a one-size-fits-all sits at the sub-regional level. So I think that the sense was that we were working within the terms of reference, which had us looking at the 4 water services entity model. We also worked on a relatively, sort of consensus model. So we walked down that track because Doug Martin, who chaired the committee, and I think we should, I want to acknowledge him. I think he's played a pivotal role in terms of leading us through an incredibly intense process. But he sort of kind of worked on the approach that that he was open to going to government with a sort of stepping outside our terms of reference, which is why he said everything was on the table. He felt that enabled everyone to put their issues on the table, and I did. You know, the stormwater issue, the difference around Christchurch, all of these issues were worked through, and the different models that came to the table, some of them outside the terms of reference. So, but where there wasn't sort of unanimity to move forward in a particular way, we focused on what the underlying principles and what really mattered. So the sub-regional arrangements very much will be different in the different parts of the country. That's our recommendation to government, that they have to recognise that different parts of the country have got different histories, they've got different water issues, they've got different water infrastructure challenges, you know, so let's see whether it's a catchment approach, whether it's a city approach, whether the urban environment's different from the provincial and the rural environments. And all of those things can be taken into account in the structure that we agree for our own regional representative group and the arrangements that are put in place. The other significant thing is that we're recommending to the government that actually the regional representative group sign off on the statement of intent. So it goes a step further than certainly that the government was proposing. They're saying that the water services entity has to give effect to it, which is the strongest language in this form of legislation. But then they come back to the regional representative group with a statement of intent, and that has to be signed off by the regional representative group.
Okay, that sounds like a good recommendation to me. Right, I've got two hands up, Tim and then Sam. Tim.
Four quick ones. The first big one, because obviously this has been such a wonderful process. I mean, Ellen Pregnell kind of sat in front of us with such respect and deep understanding of our concerns. I'm just wondering, the number one question, so what is the likelihood of the government picking up on the recommendations made?
How long is a piece of string, Tim?
Well, it depends.
I am going to say
Alan's, he's going to take it back, isn't it?
No, Alan's not working in this area anymore. But that's not the point. Let's not personalise it to individuals. No. I'm hoping that the government realises the error of its ways in terms of the way that it has. I think it has treated the sector with a degree of disrespect, and I want that resolved. But I hope that they do, and I hope that these are recommendations that they build into the legislation. Can I also say that that's step one, and then there's another step, because then they introduce a bill and we start the select committee process, which then leads us to another opportunity to raise issues that we have by way of concern.
Number two, the takeaway entity D, with the shareholder structure, the ratepayers of Christchurch own the assets we have now. So, and it's going to be, so people in Winton will have shares and people in, I don't know, Kaikoura will have shares. So everyone will have shares. But the question is, why don't we just take the sale and the privatisation? Why don't we just say that we do not want that to be there, rather than just leaving it in there, but saying all shareholders have to agree to it? Because there could be things that you could change to that in the future.
Well, the model that was in the government's proposal was that we somehow collectively owned, but it was all dependent on legislation. So creating a shareholding just simply creates, like water care is. I mean, Auckland City Council owns the shares in water care. We own the shares in Orion by way of CCHL.
Yeah, but
setting up a share.
Glacier don't own shares in Orion.
No, but
there's a big change.
But Selwyn District Council does, because they are a shareholder. They own 11% of it. So and they have done ever since other councils sold their shares to Christchurch. So it's a model for simply explaining that the ownership sits with the councils, not with the entity. Ultimately, it sits with the councils. The entity is owned by the councils.
I guess, not for now, but two things. I just still can't get my head around who's actually going to be able to make decisions and who's actually going to be able to so every entity, whether it's, say, Fox Glacier or us, deserves the same amount of respect for their assets and their concerns. And I just don't know how that's going to work. The last thing I would really like to know at the end of all this, or going at some stage, is what is the cost of each of the layer cakes. So not as in the person, but the placements, the entity that's going to be sitting on boards, etc. What's the pay rate? So I think that should be made very, very clear to the public. So each layer cake, whatever that is, so they know what the structures are. Thank you. That's my lot.
I think that's a really good question, Tim. Sam?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Leanne, for that. I may have missed a wee bit. I dropped out, but I'll come back in. Just two questions from me. One was around, just so I'm clear on the shareholding structure, will that be reflected still in our balance sheet? So they've talked about the shareholder, us being the shareholder. So I presume that will sit on our books.
Sorry, I'm confused. There will be a separated balance sheet, so we won't have control. So it won't be like our balance sheet includes the the CCHL holdings.
Yeah. So although we're a shareholder, I'm just thinking if you take a normal company where you're the shareholder and your asset is, or your equity is reflected in your council balance sheet, just to confirm that won't be the case still.
No.
Okay.
That's not the recommendation that we're putting to government. No.
Right. And just the other one was, and it probably is a wee bit redundant now that we're still not going to sort of own it, but around what was the reason behind the shareholding as such sitting with the population base as opposed to the asset base? And it kind of goes to what Tim was saying about, if we're putting in 6.9 billion of assets, because of the different levels of investment across the takiwā, that will vary. So how do we land on population as opposed to actually skin in the game?
Just to try and answer the question around the belief that people had that the ultimate owners weren't themselves and that it was subject to privatisation. So it was really to take that issue off the table, and it's gone. It's not an issue under this proposal. But as I say, the government has to accept it for that to occur. But from a broader point of view, the co-governance model is about feeding into, and it's a separate model from the ownership model, but feeding into the statement of performance expectations and then the statement of intent that comes back. And it's that we think that that's actually probably more significant in terms of really setting the agenda and ensuring that priorities are actually reflecting what's needed at the community level.
Yeah, I guess the concern is around, and I completely get your point, the concern is, I guess the narrative already out this morning is that councils will be shareholders. But by definition, to be a shareholder, you should be able to reflect that even if you're a minority position on your balance sheet. So it just seems a wee bit, it's almost like in some respects it hasn't changed.
It's a place in the shareholding.
No. Well, it is, it's a shareholding, and I mean, it's a shareholding that people can understand. I think what hasn't happened is there has not been clarity around the scale of the work that needs to be done across New Zealand. So, but I mean, this is ultimately going to be the political debate, which is when the bill comes into the House.
Yeah.
And and we are not stuck on any position because I sat on the governance working group, and we as a council will work through all of those issues together, and we will put in a submission on the bill when it's introduced, and I can guarantee that.
And just and it's not a question, just a comment, I just think it's actually really, really good that we can have this conversation in public, and I know that's sort of, it's great we can do it in a Three Waters meeting as well. So yeah, no, thanks for prompting that, Leanne.
Thank you. Leanne, just one more question. You said there was 4 alternative models put up. Can you just I know that the Communities for Local Democracy put one up. I think, is it Hawke's Bay or Poitiki had one? Can you just outline a little bit about those and how they were looked at and considered?
all online, Pauline, and I'm sorry, I don't know them all off by heart, but there was the Hawke's Bay model, there was...
You're darling.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We'll take that one for later. Perhaps we can take that offline. Okay, are there any other questions for Leanne? So we'll go back to the, but thank you, Leanne, that was really, really helpful. We'll go back to the
Sorry, Pauline.
Yanni's got a question.
Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. Just reading the report, I was interested. One of the recommendations was around communication. Deepening the public understanding. And it says, we would like the Crown to provide our communities with the same opportunity to learn. We recommend it gives fresh consideration to its ongoing communications and engagement, and goes on. But like, given how offensive their PR campaign was towards us and to local people, did the working group have any reflection on that? Because just from reading that recommendation, it almost sounds like just for the government to continue doing what they're doing. I don't think that would be the intent.
Yeah, look, Leanne's not here at the moment, so we might hold that question off to the end, but I do know that the working group was urging the government to do a better job of communicating, engaging, but whether they can or not, I don't know, because sometimes when organisations get too large, it becomes difficult. So can we just hold that, Yanni, till Leanne gets back? And then I'll just open up the questions on the Three Waters bi-monthly report. So we've got, Jimmy, do you have one?
Yes, okay. And on page 18, regarding to the drinking water safety plan.
Yes.
And because I remember our CEO and also the new regulator, the CEO, Tomata Alawai, they had a meeting at the beginning of last year, particularly for our registration of each water supply and our sources to present to name. And but in that time, particularly emphasize beginning of March, which on the 1st of March, we were eligible to present our new drinking water, the safety plan, and also consider exemption from those chlorine. But based on the staff, the kind of information, at the moment we have already completed the 4 of 7 plan. Particularly this 4 is quite a big one. Christchurch, Littleton, Little River, Vanui, and Akaroa, Takanatua. Only the 3 of them not yet, because based on the regulator, the Taumata Alawa, they still need to take time, to review the source, to visit some supply, whether we can present those 4 already done to name. They still need to take plenty of time to review, rather than just waiting for the June of this coming year. Because in my area, still quite a few people, when they review the council, the news line at the beginning of the December, they are all aware in 1st of March, council will present the new drinking water plan exemption of this chlorine to the new regulator. So this is my question.
Thanks, Jimmy. I'll throw that to staff for an answer. I think you're asking 2 questions there, the state of the water safety plans and are we in a position to apply for a chlorine exemption?
Yes, it's my question.
Is that you, Teresa?
I think that one probably is for Tim, actually, if Tim's still on the line.
Okay.
He just keeps dropping out, Pauline, but he should be back on now.
Okay.
Can you have a stab at it, Teresa?
Dropping out, Pauline.
I'm not really comfortable to provide the very latest. Obviously, the work that I do around water reform and the Three Waters transition is directly linked up. And I'm certainly aware that the team had been working on the water safety plans. There have been some changes around Taumata Arawai, including who provides the guidance from Taumata Arawai to us, going from Wellington to Christchurch. But in terms of the exact status, I would prefer that we take that and provide it as an action back to you. It would be Just
Okay,
it's
that'd be
just
good.
slightly separate to me. Things just change in this area. Things change so quickly that yeah, I might be a little bit out of date. I could probably get it during this meeting.
Yeah. So, but also, thank you. We've also got a new volume C. Is that new? That we're working on now as well. And we need a time frame for when volume C started and when it's due to be finished. So if you could just get back to us with a memo on those three things, that would be really helpful. Unless Tim pops back in. Sorry, Jimmy, we'll have to get a memo for your response because Tim keeps dropping out.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because it's not my question. Actually, is various community and residents their concern. They are at the moment quite a few. They just buy bought those kind of the bottled water. They didn't drink any the tap water now.
Yeah.
On my Facebook, they reflect to me.
Yeah, I know you're concerned about that. So if we could get that back with some urgency, that would be helpful. Mel.
Thank you.
Cheers.
I don't know who can answer this. It was about the fluoridation and the date of the 11th of March, this Friday, to get in the revised pricing. I was just wondering, because this will be written a week or two ago, if there's been any update about that or when we'll hear about it.
Yeah, so I can potentially speak to that.
Yep,
that's all right. Yep. So yep, as you know, December last year, we were asked to start doing planning again regarding the implications. And we have procured experts. We've been working with experts the whole time. We're expected to respond back to the Ministry of Health this Friday on the cost implications and the potential timeframes needed to implement fluoridation. We have a draft figure. We're wrapping that up as we speak, and we will be able to provide that figure to the Ministry of Health by Friday, and obviously we will follow up with a proper briefing to Council.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, that was a good question. I was going to ask that too. So I have a question on page 15, and Jane, I brought this up with you, I think at the last meeting, but it's about the National Transition Unit, their request for information. Is there anyone who can answer the question if I ask it?
If it's about the Three Waters transition, then yes, I should be able to answer it.
So first of all, that we were supposed to have completed that by the 1st of March. So firstly, have we completed that request? Secondly, how much resource, staff resource and finance did it cost us? And thirdly, are we invoicing for it?
So in answer to the first question, yes, we completed it. We didn't quite complete it within the original deadline, but I worked really closely with Lila Hurray, who's the lead from the that work stream. It's more important to make sure that the information they got was right. We submitted it the end of last week. The major challenge that we had was actually around the privacy of workforce of our people and ensuring that we met our own obligations. We treated it like a Lagoima request. In terms of the staff involvement, the involvement for people like myself and Gertrude, we fund ourselves anyway through the DIA stimulus funds, so there was no cost to council. Yes, there was a cost to for our internal HR staff and our senior leaders who provided review, and also a couple of people in the Three Waters, but it was relatively minimal, and we certainly wouldn't be looking to invoice the Crown at this stage. What we have done, of course, though, is to start talking to them about the ongoing costs of the Three Waters transition, because that's going to be a lot more significant to us. And at the moment, we have no funding from them beyond the end of June this year.
Right, okay, that's good. And then I've got one more, I see Yannick's back, I've got one more, which is page 44, and our team resourcing, which we know is under strain. Have we got any progress in our recruitment for staff in the Three Waters area? Jane, are you there? Can you answer that?
Yes, so I'll answer that. Yes, so we are doing our best. So we've got a number of recruitment processes underway. We've had some people join us, which has been great, but it is a hard market out there. And it's something that we're going to be talking to the transition agencies about and DIA just around how we manage what is a pretty limited resource as they go through a transition and look to resource themselves. So it's a live issue that we are sharing with other councils and with the transition agencies. So yeah, we've still got a number of vacancies. We're still actively recruiting. We're in a pretty good place at the moment. We've got some pretty amazing people. And I think this is just going to be an ongoing issue for the next sort of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I can see that. And yeah, so okay, well, we'll have to keep an eye on that. But thank you. So have we got Leanne back yet? Doesn't look like it. Mel, have you got another question?
I am back.
No, I'm just going to take my hand down now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Leanne. Yanni has a question for you. Please, go, Yanni.
Okay.
Thank you. I was just, Leanne, interested in the Working Party's report where they make reference to just basically around the communication, the deepening public understanding. And I just wondered whether there was any reflection on the pretty insulting PR campaign that the government ran, because in the recommendations, it doesn't really, I was just concerned that it kind of encourages government to do more of the same.
No,
so I don't know if the group talked about that and kind of where you got to with what they were planning on doing.
No. Look, the government has literally received our recommendations. We have been very clear in our discussions, and that it is that what occurred was unacceptable and disrespectful. So I think the first of the recommendations talks about honouring the stewardship of the councils in terms of the Three Waters infrastructure. So, you know, and which is a completely different frame of reference from the insulting advertising campaign that we were subjected to. So we've recommended that the government actually start again in terms of communicating with the public about the scale of the issues that need to be addressed.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any other questions on the report or for Leanne?
Yeah, I did have a question as well, Pauline.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to check with staff over the, when will everyone be able to have, to go online and get their water meter read? I'm just increasingly concerned that the charges are coming in quite soon, and some people still don't have the capacity to measure how much their daily water use is, or their water use is.
Is there anyone that can take that question?
Yes.
Hi.
Good morning.
Anyone that can take that question?
Yeah, I can. It's Tim Brennan here.
Hi.
Good morning. Yeah, so I mean, the accuracy of the information that we're getting is improving. Yeah, I can. It's Tim Brennan here.
Hi. Try again, Tim. Has he dropped out?
Yeah, I don't know. We're not all a bit muffled. So I was really keen to understand when people will be able to look at their water use, and also how fair is it that we bring in the charges when people haven't had a chance to see what their consumption patterns have been? And is there any thought to delaying the introduction of the charges, given that, you know, we were assured a year ago that people would have access to be able to know how much water was being used?
I think Tim's here.
Sorry, in the absence of others kicking in. So you got a briefing on this in the last week or two. We have prioritised individual properties with the only areas that if I recall Helen's briefing to you, the only areas of the city where people can't access that information is really in the multi-unit properties. And the issue, and so we've deprioritised those issues and prioritised those properties who are likely or possibly going to have additional charges. So the reason that the multiple unit dwellings have been deprioritised is because their water use won't be hitting that threshold for receiving those additional charges. So we'll get some written information back to you just to confirm all this, but my recollection is that Helen said that actually everybody that needs to be able to read their water meters will be able to.
So I've just checked 2 addresses today in suburbs, not multi-unit dwellings. Neither of them can get a reading from the website.
Okay, well, we'll follow that up and give you, send you a memo on it.
Yeah.
Well,
But at this point, there's no consideration of delaying the charger.
No, but Yanni, if you could send those addresses through to Jane, I think that would be quite helpful because we can put a focus on that.
But we must know, like there must be a really simple thing that we know about how many water meters have been read and how many are still to be read. Like that, like you don't need individual addresses. We must have some sense of that. I mean, I don't know if councillors remember when we were discussing bringing in the water charges, the excess water charges, this was raised and we were repeatedly reassured that people could get their readings over a year ago before the LTP was finalised. We were told that people would be able to do that so they could see what the impact would be.
Yeah.
So am I the only one that's worried about this? I mean, if so, that's cool. But
no, you're not the only one.
You know, like this is a significant issue that we've got charges coming in very shortly.
Okay.
And
thanks,
we just
Yanni.
need to know the scale of the problem and the time frame for when people.
We'll come back to you with that information quickly.
Yeah, happy just to get it as a memo. Thank you. Just the other question I had was in regards to the water supply rezoning. So, sorry, two quick questions. One is the water supply rezoning in Rāwhiti. Why is that taking so long? And is there any resource you need that can speed it up? This is the move to smaller water zones for a whole bunch of reasons around resilience and better control. And then the second question, and then I'll just put my mic on mute, is around the stormwater catchment plans that we've submitted to ECAN. What's the date that we're expecting a response? Is there a date that we're expecting a response from ECAN about whether they approve those plans or not?
Okay, thank you. So who wants to take the Rāwhiti zone one?
And Michelle, yeah, I can speak about Rāwhiti. So Rāwhiti has already been rezoned. It won't be rezoned further. What we're busy doing at this stage is the planning regarding rezoning the rest of the city. And we're doing intensive modelling and optimisation to make sure that those boundaries are really the right boundaries in terms of not just now, but future growth, to make sure that we decide on the right boundaries for using the best our capacity that we have now to use it the best way possible going forward. But Rāwhiti has been rezoned from the rest of the city. You're potentially talking about the pressure reduction. And again, the pressure has been reduced in Rāwhiti from 720 kPa to 600. We still want to reduce it to 550 kPa, so another 50, but there are still a couple of fire sprinkler systems that needs to be upgraded by the private property owners, and we've given some time for them to do that. But we should be able to drop it even further in the next couple of months.
Great, thank you. And the other question about the comprehensive consent, stormwater consent? Who's that?
I don't think we actually have, Jane, the stormwater
No,
representative.
that would be Tim, but he can't connect in. So again, sorry, councillors, we'll have to come back to you with that information.
Okay, so Andrew, I hope you're collecting all these memos that we require post-meeting. And no, we do appreciate that it's difficult forum this, but so long as we collect the questions and we get a timely response, that should be fine. Melanie, yes.
I was going to say is if we get an answer, so it's just unfortunate. Tim is definitely dialed in. He's just not able to use his microphone at the moment. He has provided me with a response to Jimmy's question earlier. So if it's more appropriate when we get answers to provide them rather than send a separate memo, then we can.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to go for that? You might want to repeat the questions. There was two. There was one about the water safety plan and the one about the when can we apply for a chlorine exemption? So you've got answers to both, have you?
So in terms of the exemption, I'll go with that first because it was at the start of his email. So the process for applying for an exemption is now available through the Taumata website. And our staff met with Taumata and other councils that would like to apply for it last week, there will be a separate process to the submission of our water safety plan, because that plan details the risks around temporary use, around within the distribution system that necessitates the current temporary chlorination. So what they're saying is that in order for us to, what we will need to do is to address all remaining risks within the distribution system before we can apply for an exemption. So we cannot apply for an exemption whilst we still have risks in unacceptable risks that require us currently to use chlorination.
Okay, so does that mean that?
It means that we have a separate requirement around our water safety plan for Christchurch because of around the temporary chlorination, and we do still have unacceptable risks, work programs to address our unacceptable risks. Until they are completed, you would not be able to apply for an exemption.
Okay, so one of those is
sorry, Pauline, may I ask the...
Oh, hang on, Jimmy. Yes, you can in a minute. One of our risks is still the Reservoir upgrade program, is that right?
Yes, they will be around...
That's a rolling 5-year program that I think's been rolling for about 2 years, which means we've got about 3 left. Is that correct?
I wouldn't like to speak to the end point of that. I certainly know that we had provided some funding to that from the stimulus funds, but yes, there is work around the reservoirs and suction tanks, and also the wellheads and backflow. The backflow work has been progressing strongly as well.
I think the backflow work, I thought it was pretty much completed, but the reservoirs are a concern. That means actually, Jimmy, it's looking like we won't be able to apply for a chlorine exemption until our reservoir program is completed, which could be years away.
And no, that's until the unacceptable risks that sit, including within the reservoirs and suction tanks. That wouldn't necessarily be the entire program. It would just be addressing the unacceptable risks.
Okay, great. So I think what we're looking for is some sort of timeline that we could be aiming for to have achieved that unacceptable risk, target. And the other question is, are we able to apply in zones and get exemptions by zone, or does it have to be citywide?
Yeah, I understand that. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
I also can answer some of the other question. It's a good thing Tim's able to keep typing around the water meter reading. So each quarter we're reading over 80%, and that's doing the actual meter readings and improving, and they're focusing on the highest users. So yes, I accepted that there are people that can't use the online tool at the moment, but the focus on the highest users will be based on our meter readings, so we can ensure we're targeting the right people.
That's helpful. Thank you. And Jimmy, did you have something you wanted to add to your question?
No, I don't. Not
You're
necessary.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tim and Teresa, for conveying that. Andrew, you've got a question, then Mel, then Yanni.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And it refers to the matter that Yanni raised and the matter that Teresa has just referred to, the water metering issue and the access to the volume data. And as has just been noted, this is wider than just the multi-unit dwellings where the data isn't available. There are 3 properties in Littleton that I've got a particular interest in, and not one of them has got access to the data through the website, despite all of them are freehold properties. Now, I'm keen to know whether that extends to all of Littleton or even all of Banks Peninsula. I'm also aware of some infrastructure issues on the ground that would lead to an inability to read those meters or inaccurate data in terms of the excess charging. I'm aware of one property where 2 freehold properties are connected to 1 meter. So despite they're not multi-unit dwellings, they're 2 freeholds, they're both connected to the 1 meter, and the water to both properties has been measured through that 1 meter. So there are issues on the ground that need to be resolved, but I'm keen to know what the extent of this reporting or non-reporting issue is, going well beyond multi-unit dwellings. So if we can get that information, as Teresa's just alluded to, as part of the response to Yanni's question, that would be really good.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, Mel?
I'm one of the houses. This isn't a question. This is a information. A lot of people can. I can't tell through the reporter how much water we've used either. But if you email in, as it says to do when you go onto the website, then you get back quite an efficient email that explains the reason for that. So in my case, our water meter has been replaced, and they've only got one reading, and to get a volume difference over time, you need two readings, and so it's waiting for that second one to occur. So I think there's an explanation in every case, and I think that people would be able to find out that information on an individual level, and I think all of it is quite explanatory.
Oh, that's really helpful, Mel. Thank you. So perhaps if councillors get questions like that, they could help people to send an email and direct them through the right channels. So Yanni?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that might be the case, but then I think we need to put some comms out around it. But just moving to a different subject, if that's okay, just the wastewater treatment plants and the odour issue, and like still getting a lot of complaints from people about the odour. And given the memo that we got, I think just early on in the new year or just before Christmas, an expectation that things would be improving. So I just wondered if someone could speak to what's happening with the measuring of the odour there and where we're at in terms of reducing it.
Right, that would be Adam. Are you still there, Adam?
Yep, certainly still here. So we've got no active odour monitoring on site, but we have identified that odour is coming from 3 locations, one being the ponds, the other being the activated sludge plant on the site, and the other being the trickling filters. If I can give an update on the temporary aeration, which is the conversion of 2 of the clarifiers to convert it into an extended activated sludge plant, which we believe will mitigate the majority of the odours from the activated sludge plant and also go a long way to helping the odour being generated from the ponds. The aerators are being in the process of being assembled at the moment and will be in use by the end of March. And once the pumps arrive from Sweden, the full activated sludge plant will be fully operational by the end of April as well. So that should mitigate any odours coming from the activated sludge plant on the site and also go a long way to supporting the dissolved oxygen in the oxidation ponds. With the oxidation ponds as well, 1 aerator is already operating, 2 aerators are ready to go as soon as we get the aerators, the electricity across the ponds operational. And we are anticipating that the odour from those should reduce beyond April.
Thank you.
Is that the start of April you're expecting to see an improvement?
We're anticipating there should be improvement in March, the end of March when the temporary aerators go in, and then it should improve further from the start of April onwards when the full temporary aeration system is fully operational.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Phil, then James.
Yeah, while I've got, thank you, Pauline. While I've got you there, Adam, all this electrical work and the aerators and stuff like that, is that being covered by insurance or us at the moment?
All the funding is being ring-fenced to one WBS code, so all costs associated with this are being captured, and then it will disappear into another person's of expertise as to how we manage that through the insurance process. But I can assure you we are capturing all costs associated with it as into a separate WBS code.
Yeah, I'm just more or less saying that just for the people that are listening out there. And the actual insurance of the, when will we know whether we're demolishing the old trickle filters or replacing the medium in the middle of them?
I think that might be a question for Jane to perhaps comment on.
Actually, Adam might know a little bit more than I do. I mean, we're starting to do some detailed investigations now. I don't think we can give you a date on when that's going to be, but it's pretty soon. We haven't finished those investigations yet, though.
All right, Adam, have you got anything to add to that, Adam?
Just to build on that, investigation is still ongoing. The damage assessment on the trickling filters is still ongoing. So, for example, we'll just put some additional scaffolding in to enable safe access to do cores on the concrete to understand the condition of the assets. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and sorry, Pauline, just one for Teresa. With the high water users, we're going around and we're 80% of the people, and we're concentrating on the high water users. Are we telling them, saying, "Oi, you seem to be using a lot. Do you think you've got a problem?" Or are we just sort of leaving it until the 1st of June or July or whenever it is, and they get whacked with a big bill? Or are we alerting them to the fact that they've got a problem?
Who wants that one? Is Tim there? Or is Tim typing? Who have we got?
No, unfortunately.
I can probably answer that one. I'm Rose. I'm from the comms team. So we're sending out 2 sets of comms. So one is going to all ratepayers on their envelope, letting them know to check their water use. And then another one is going directly to high water users.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks, Rose. No, that's good. What I'm getting at is a friend of mine lives around the corner from me, and he's just 2 60-year-old people living in a house similar to I am, and I go online and I said, see, he's using 3,500 litres a day. I say, mate, you've got a leak. You have to have a leak because no one has showers for that long. So, but I'm just wondering, it's all very well for me to go and see him and say he's got a problem, and we'll go around and try and find it. But is he getting advice from us saying, mate, you've got a problem?
As Rosa said, yes, we will. Well, maybe we haven't done yet, but yes, we are expecting to talk to all of the high water users, and we are following up on all leaks as well. So,
It's true, because Phil, the aim of this is not really to hit people in the pocket. It's actually towards water conservation, which also helps to reduce our delivery costs, which will reduce the cost to the ratepayer. So it's not really to get people to charge them for the overuse. It's really to help people.
And our team's already in discussions. They're talking to a lot of high water users or people with leaks at the moment already.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thanks. Exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Great. James? And then Celeste?
Cheers. Look, work on exemptions for excess water use charges for large families was going to be done during this period, which was in line with the council resolution. But I'm wondering how work on that has progressed and where we've got to, and where staff are at with what constitutes a large family to be granted that exemption.
Can anyone take that one?
Doesn't sound like there will be. Sorry, we'll come back to you on that one.
Yeah, we. I was just waiting. I'm just having a fairly slow conversation with Tim. Some of these questions are obviously very specifically within Tim's area. So if I get an answer, I'll let you know.
Okay. Is it okay, James? I can go to Celeste.
Yeah, it was always going to be a tricky one, so I apologise. Yeah. It wasn't really one on purpose, but we all appreciate it was going to be difficult. But it's something that we're going to need an answer to, because we're going to be challenged with it. So we need to be clear, and I'd like to be clear as well.
Yeah. I mean, Helen's spoken to us previously about it. It's not the intention to harm, to be an inconvenience for people or a burden for people with large families. So I guess it's a piece of work we've got in hand. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Now, Celeste, did you put your hand down?
Oh yeah, I just was in preparation. I'll just quickly ask my question. It's just about the comms plan for the aeration components and reduction in odour. Is there something going out to give an update on that? Because I think the last one was about 3 weeks ago.
I can take that one. Yes, there will be something going out quite soon. So we did send out some information to the community board, I think, last week or the week before. So yes, we've got a comms plan in place, and as soon as there's something to talk about, we'll be sending the next one out. So that will be probably the installation of the aerators. We're going to get some good photos taken as they go in and so on. So yeah, that will go out next. What we don't want to do is raise people's expectations around timing, just in case something goes wrong. And we know that we've had a number of issues with COVID and equipment arriving and so on. So yeah, we've sort of taken the approach that when there's something to talk about, we absolutely will be going out there and giving people that information.
Great, thanks, Jane. I'm going to go to Anne and then I'll go back to Yanni. Welcome, Anne. You're muted, Anne. You have to unmute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, kia ora, sorry for being late. It's good to be here. Now, I'm assuming that we're talking about the report. Is that correct? You're asking questions? Cool. Yeah. So apologies if I'm repeating something. I'm just wondering, the Denton pump station repairs are ongoing. Just wondering when that's scheduled to finish being repaired. Any ideas?
So is that Tim again?
Yeah, probably is Tim.
Okay, we'll come back to that, Anne, because you'll be typing an answer. Cool. Sam?
Oh, can I just ask one more? Sorry.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. Eastman, Sutherland, Hoonhoe Basins, huge amount of work going on there, and wondering if there's a possibility for a site visit with the community board, just to get an understanding of everything that's going on out there. It's just amazing. And I know that they're going to be having briefings and things, but it would be great to have a site visit if that's possible.
I'm sure it is. We'll just leave that with staff to organise.
Yep. And one more. Sorry, just Hayton's Stream with the drain thing, that's Hayton's Road with the drain. Will that have an impact, a positive impact on Hayton's Stream, the work that's being done there? That's another one that perhaps someone could answer.
Yeah, there'll be a Tim one as well. So we'll come back to you.
That's fine. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Pauline. Jane and Teresa, because I think Helen's online. Just around the the chlorination, do you think we could have something come through which talks about the steps forward from now? And I know Yanni talked about it before, but I'd also be really keen to see the plan around how we communicate the steps with the public as well. So we kind of go, each month, this is what we're doing to get to that point. Can we perhaps have something back? I don't know how you want to do it, but could you take that away and have a think about it?
Yep. Yeah, we can do a little comms plan for that. Absolutely.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. That's a good idea because it's quite complicated. So if we can get something easily understood, even a diagrammatic form would be helpful. And Phil.
Yeah, thanks again, Pauline. I totally agree with you, Sam. If the community could have, say, a little plan on, right, if we get the Denton tank finished, this whole area of town will be able to have no chlorine in it, and I'd like to commend everyone for the effort that's going into all the repairs of the water tanks, because there's a hell of a list of them, and a lot of money has been spent. But that is our next sort of cab off the rank. We've got all our wells are fairly secure, but the suction tanks are causing us a bit of grief. And lastly, Jane, with the money that we're going to spend on O'Kane's Bay, which looks like it might be a bit light, just reading the report, and the proposed money we're going to spend on the new water filtering machine at Akaroa, should we perhaps put that money towards that water pipeline thing I was talking to you about the other day?
Jane, you're on mute.
Thanks, Phil. We're still finalising the details of what that final design is going to look like. So I can't tell you that that's what we'll do right now. So we'll come back to you on what our final designs are and whether it's that pipeline that you've talked about or whether it's an alternative.
Yeah,
so you'll come back to all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. All I was trying to do is if those two numbers of O'Kane's Bay and the new machine at Aeration for water treatment at the thick end of 6.5 mil, which probably wouldn't have to be spent if we did something with that pipeline. But I'm just throwing it out there.
No, the team's looking at all those different options and they're costing up all those different options. And then once we've done that analysis, we'll bring back to you for a decision.
Yeah, beauty. Thank you.
Okay, and it looks like we've got a last question from Jimmy, and then I'll see if Teresa's heard from Tim. Jimmy?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, regarding to the Denton suction, I remember let's back to the middle of December last year, the staff already told to me, regarding to the work line and the seal the inside of the tank will be complete at the end of January. Also, they will upgrade the pump station electrical control. Then they will put to the service. So tank plan to back in service on 8th of April. So just want to share with you. But my question is whether those are the inside the line and the tank has been finished by the end of January. This is my question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Teresa, have you got anything to report?
I have just checked. I did check in with Tim around Denton. It is currently running. In terms of the numbers, the dates for the final work on the reservoir, we didn't have those to hand. So,
okay.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Also, electrical. Those pump station electrical control. When will be finished? Yeah, the electrical control upgrade. Yeah.
All right. We'll have to rely on a memo for that. And I think possibly for the response to Anne's 2 questions, or might have been 3. So is that okay, Anne? I'm sorry, we'll have to get you a memo out. It'll come out to the whole committee. All right, so it doesn't look like there's any more questions on this report, so I'm happy to move the report. Do I have a willing seconder? Phil, thank you very much. So is there any debate on it? If not, I'd just like to thank staff for the excellent report, and the capital program detail is eye-watering. We can see just what this council is doing, and it's wonderful Three Waters delivery. I think incredible. And I'd like to thank Leanne for giving us an update on the working group. For me, there was no real surprises. I guess just the shareholding, public shareholding might be seen as a big move, but I'm not so sure about that, and I'm really not sure how it's going to mitigate the loss of the assets on our books as a council either. And I also do feel that I would like to look forward to that information on how any alternatives were considered by the working group. And also, you know, I do still hope that the government will see some sense and push pause on this, because there is an element of predetermination, and we've pointed out that there could be some flaws in the analysis anyway that the whole thing's based on. I don't personally think the whole thing's as broken as they've ever said, so I really do hope that they take note of that report, and also that when the consultation time comes out after the bill's presented, that we get some good intelligent feedback from that as well. So thanks again, Adam, as well, for doing incredible work out at the wastewater treatment plant. I know you've got massive challenges out there. I was privileged enough to have a visit, and it was, you don't actually appreciate the magnitude of the damage there until you actually see it. The photos just don't deliver that. It's actually really shocking, and what you're doing there in a short period of time, and particularly under the COVID challenges of actually getting the supply chain working, is incredible. So I want to thank you again, for you and your team, for all the incredible work you're doing out there, Adam. Thank you. So on that note, I'll move the report. All those in favour say aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you. So I'll close the meeting with a karakia. Tukuna te warua ki rere ki te taumata. Ko te matatika motopono hi arahi. Ina mahi. Ka aratahi te tira kia iki punuku. Kia iki tangaroa. Homi e, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora everybody. Thank you very much. And those who want to stay on, we now have a